And just kicking it off with an introduction of Half the Sky, we are a leading career platform that focuses on connecting female job seekers with equal opportunity employers. And we offer a women's career network, skills training, and a growing list of career opportunities from companies that care, and also expert career advice to help you make that leap in your career. As an advocate for diversity in the workplace, our mission is to level the playing field for women at work and to help companies build a diverse and robust workforce. All of this to inspire more women to achieve their career aspirations. So please check our platform out. You can do so at www.halftheskyasia.com. All right, and our host today is none other than Sabrina Ho. You all know her as the CEO and founder of Half the Sky. Hong Kong born but based in Singapore, Sabrina has had over 15 years of recruitment experience across APAC, and she founded Half the Sky in 2019 with a mission to level the playing field for women at work. Sabrina is a sought-after contributor, moderator, and speaker on the topics of diversity, the future of work, and leadership. And she has been recognized as LinkedIn's Top Voices 2022 very recently, and Singapore's 100 Women in Tech 2021, prestigious 40 under 40, and she was a judge on the Peaks Power List. And Sabrina has also been featured on LinkedIn, Workforce Singapore, Channel News Asia, Elle Magazine, Tatler, Prestige, and among many more publications. And now I will introduce our four incredible panelists. Firstly, we have Yimei Leong. She's Equinix Managing Director for South Asia. So Yimei is responsible for leading the company's business strategy, and she focuses on facilitating digital transformation of businesses to support the government's plan to establish Singapore as a digital hub in Asia. During her tenure, Yimei has led the team to expand platform Equinix within Singapore, and of course, as a diversity, inclusion, and belonging ally, and the global executive sponsor of We Are Equinix, she supports equality and underrepresented groups within the company and the local community. And Yimei joined Equinix in 2019 with over 35 years of ICT experience across Asia Pacific at leading technology companies such as IBM, Lotus, F5 Networks, and Orange Business Services. So welcome, Yimei. We're so excited to have you join us today.
Thank you, Bianca.
All right, and we also have Angelina joining us from DuPont. So she is a strategic talent business partner with over 10 years of recruitment experience in both the industrial and the technology industries. And Angie is a trusted consulting talent advisor to her business leaders, and she's very passionate about social hiring and is a strong advocate for diversity hiring. Another fact about Angie is that she's fluent in English and Mandarin, and she has had personal experience living and working in Australia, China, Singapore, and Malaysia. So welcome, Angie. Welcome. Very excited to have you. Yes. Okay. So we also have today Iman joining us. She is a Microsoft Singapore's country head of customer success. So as a leader who has lived and worked in Japan, France, Morocco, and Singapore, Iman's inspiration to innovate stems from her deep cultural integration and diverse and inclusive approach to people across different business functions. Through her passion for diversity and inclusion, Iman continues to deliver impact on the community by embracing diversity and creating that true sense of belonging for everyone. Iman endeavors to advocate and empower women of technology by inspiring young female talent across Asia and encouraging them to embrace innovative thinking grounded in trust, inclusivity, and meaning. So welcome, Iman. Great to have you today.
Thank you, Bianca.
Yes, and of course, finally, we have Duncan Hewitt. So he is VMware's former vice president and general manager for Asia Pacific and Japan, and he currently serves as a strategic advisor for VMware. And Duncan is also the author for Accelerating Women, which is a new book on actionable ways to create a diverse workplace. He has been the industry champion on the representation of women in business and technology over 35 years with his career in IT industry. And Duncan also has created and sponsored VM Inclusion Tara, which is a world-leading program that helps women upskill, regain the confidence to return to work in the India technology sector. And up to date, more than 3,500 women have rejoined the workforce, and over 16,000 women have and are benefiting from participating in the program. So this program has great expansion across Asia Pacific, and it's also multi-awarded with Women Leading Change Awards 2020, India's reputed Economic Times, and many more. So throughout Duncan's leadership roles in IBM, Lotus, and VMware, he has been personally recognized as Speak In, Leader in Diversity and Inclusion 2022, and the top 50 leading lights for kindness and leadership in 2021. So Duncan's vision for the workplace is to be representative of society, which is a 50-50 participation. As he says, if it is not, we have work to do. So wow, what a fantastic panel we have today. And I'm so excited for this fire chat that is to come. So without further ado, I will now pass the mic to Sabrina.
Thank you so much, Bianca, for the amazing introduction. And hello, audience. Welcome to our IWD 2022 Inclusive Workplaces, the Key to a Sustainable Tomorrow event. So for our fireside chat today, we will divide it into 4 parts. So part number 1, we're going to get to know our panelists a little bit deeper and their career journey. And part 2, the panelists are going to share with us what it means for organizations to prioritize inclusive design and how it contributes to building a diverse workforce. And part 3, we're going to discuss the various impacts of inclusive workplaces on employees and businesses. And the last part, our part 4, the panelists are going to share with us practical tips for adopting an inclusive attitude and some final words. So without further ado, we'll go straight into our part 1. So today we're very fortunate to be joined by such a diverse panel of leaders for today's event, Inclusive Workplaces, the Key to a Sustainable Tomorrow. And I'm sure the audience would love to get to know all of our speakers today. So panelists, please introduce yourself and tell us what you do at your organizations. Imari, would you like to go first?
Absolutely. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you, Sabrina, for inviting us here, and honored to be with the fellow panelists. My name is Meredin. I am Moroccan from origin, Japanese of citizenship. I left Morocco at 18 years old to go to study and work in Japan. So if there is any diversity and inclusion challenges, I can tell you, I faced it at 18 years old, not speaking Japanese nor English in a country where only Japanese was spoken. And hence that's created the core of who I am. I am unapologetically a strong believer on diversity, inclusion, equity, and belonging. And I encourage everyone in my team and role model and try to inspire others to achieve more as well.
Thank you, Iman. Imei?
Hi everyone, and welcome to the session today. It's a privilege to be joined by all the panel speakers, Angelina, Iman, and Duncan, an old friend in the industry. So I was really excited to see Duncan's name appear. So I have been in the industry for over 35 years, and I was born in Penang, a little island, left home on my first flight out to Canada and did my grade 13 and tertiary education there, and then came back to Asia and started my career in Singapore. So it's been an extremely fruitful journey I've had in my career, and one where I clearly have been supported by leaders that had given me the opportunity as a woman. You know, in the mid-80s when I started, there was no such thing as sexual harassment, you know, and I am personally positively delighted to see the steps that we have made to ensure that we give a voice to women on all fronts. You know, as Madeleine Albright said, a leader which really was all inspiring for women across the world. She said that human rights are women's rights and women's rights are human rights. You know, and it's that inclusiveness that we bring, and that ability for us to come together from all walks of life, from differences, that we enrich the world we live in and enrich the workplace that we work in. So, you know, I have a 23-year-old and I have a 1-year-old 4-legged English bulldog. You know, I am passionate about fashion, flowers, and I love traveling because that helps me brings me to all places across the globe and understand all different cultures, meet different people, eat different food, smell, see, and that's one of my greatest passions.
Amazing. Thank you, Yimei. You already start dropping some gems already, so can't wait. Angelina?
Hello, everyone. Can you, oh, yeah. So Angie, so as Bianca has made a great introduction earlier, so I came from Malaysia, not from the island Penang, but from a different island. So I came from Sarawak, tier 2 city in Sarawak. I actually left home many years ago now. So I went to Australia to do my tertiary study. When I went to Australia, English is not my first language. So I understand the barrier that Iman was talking about. My first assignment failed, right? So I can never forget that experience. And then I went to Australia, and people were asking me, why do you go there? You know, all this, sorry, Duncan will correct that, you know, the whole racism and all this. I'm like, sometimes you either, so I was taught very young age. At the time, I remember my host family taught me saying that if you ever felt in any situation that people talk you down in this environment, you just have to speak up for yourself. You have to, you know, how would I call it, right the wrong. So I think I was taught at that very young age, alone, being in a foreign country, in a foreign lane, try to, you know, survive. So it has been very, very close to my heart to make this work. And now I'm a talent partner in DuPont. And in this line of work in the last 10 years has also, you know, made me see a lot of what, also touching on some of the topic later on, pay equity, you know, underprivileged or underrepresented group, how we help them. And trust me, I've seen a fair share of inequity, you know, unfairness that happens in different forms and shapes and conversation. And I'm very passionate on how do we move forward together to create a better platform for everyone, right? Sometimes we think it's just female, but sometimes it's a larger group, it's a wider group out there. So yeah, I am with DuPont right now, doing a lot of hiring across the region. So that's me in a nutshell. Thank you.
Thank you, Angie. And last up, Duncan.
Rena. So like Imai, I've been in the industry a long time, and actually I've just returned to Australia. So after spending the last 20 years traveling across Asia Pacific, and the calculation my wife made was I'd been out of the country 4,500 days in the last 20 years. So you can do the quick calculation. It's a lot of traveling. I'm fortunate, actually. I had an experience about 18 years ago where I had a team of 13 women and 2 men that sort of created a completely different leadership experience around what was required. And then even as recently as 6 years ago when I joined VMware, my first day I walked around to the office next to me, which was Pam, who headed up marketing, and I asked her for an organisation chart. And even 6 years ago, out of 22 leaders in the leadership team, Pam was the only woman. And so, you know, this concept of diversity, bringing the best out in teams and, you know, being inclusive, I'm happy to say now we've had 8 women in the leadership team over the last 3 to 4 years, providing that diversity of leadership. And I had the pleasure of leading VMware for the last 6 years. So I had the other experience around creating the TARA program. And as you heard at the start, we've now helped over 4,000 women return to the workforce in India. And that program, I've been both the sponsor and the funder and part of the management committee leading that program over the last 4 years. So it continues to be, I guess, one of the pleasures of life of having created something that makes a difference. Thanks, Sabrina.
Yeah, thank you, Duncan. And yeah, you achieve a lot of success with the TARA program, and very important work. So panelists, audience, this International Women's Day, the official UN Women 2022 theme is Gender Equality Today, for a sustainable tomorrow. And at Half the Sky, one of the key factors we believe in building a sustainable tomorrow is building a workplace for all, an inclusive workplace. So today we're especially focusing on the importance of a workplace that takes into account the needs of the modern career women. And there are countless proven studies that show diverse, inclusive workplaces are a business imperative that drives company innovation, business profitability, and overall performance. So panelists, can you help us understand what does being inclusive in the workplace means to you and your organizations? And what are the 4 key factors that every inclusive workplace should possess? Duncan?
I think the first thing is, and there's plenty of research that's been completed that shows a diverse workplace delivers much better financial results. So the first thing around an inclusive workplace is it allows people to bring their authentic self to work. And my experience is you get anything up to 25% more productivity that way. So if you think about the first things, it's about celebrating the differences that people bring to the workplace, valuing those differences and providing an environment that they're comfortable to bring their authentic self to work, regardless of what background they come from. Because that's actually the power of difference, is what brings more innovation and more growth to organisations. But let me hand it over to my colleagues and they can keep adding.
In my view, there are a couple of things that I think we continue to do and I'll continue seeing is continue to challenge and stretch our mindset, right? So what we are seeing and witnessing now that may seem right or it's a norm, but if you dig deeper, it may not. So challenge that mindset. So always ask ourselves, what more? And the other important question to that is, what needs to be less? So for me, that's about creating more self-awareness in each individual to reach the stage where we want to have an inclusive workspace.
Yeah, no, that's great. I totally relate and agree with Duncan and Angie. And one of the things since I joined Microsoft, I was very surprised that everyone in the organization knows what the mission is all about. In other companies, sometimes the mission is very long. Here, it's 12 words of empowering every person and every organization in the planet to achieve more. And that on its own is an inclusive mission statement, regardless which your role or gender or ethnicity or anything else. We always go back to that basic, which is the mission of empowering everyone to achieve more. And that creates the D&I being part of the mission. Now, in practice, we know we can say all about diversity and inclusion, and we want to be inclusive. But in practice, what does that mean sometimes, and most of the time, is that each one of us learn to have candid conversation, call out and correct non-inclusive behavior, raise awareness of privilege. And privilege can mean many things in many environments. So bringing that and sharing it in the learnings, in the new hires, in the families of our employees, so that we commit to an honest dialogue between the teams and the leaders and have, again, employee resources groups and all. So instead of shutting people down due to their differences, let's include them. And one of the things I love also most is the allyship. Allyship is critical to us, being ally to all, being ally to diversity, being ally also to people with disability and everything else. So bringing allyship as part of the mission and being truly inclusive by raising and talking and having candid, open conversations.
Yeah, I think my colleagues have shared a lot of the aspects which we need to work at to make a workplace inclusive. And fundamentally for me, what's most important is the culture in the workplace must help seal that. And I think I've been really fortunate that, after 35 years in the industry, I'm with Equinix, a company that really believes and embraces an inclusive workplace. So for us in Equinix, what we do is we really focus on ensuring that all of us make the workplace a place where we feel that I'm safe, I belong, and I matter. And extremely fortunate to be the global executive to help bring this alive all across the globe in Equinix. We have formed teams from local teams that come together voluntarily, and they focus on the 6 pillars, which is really about fun and well-being, green and sustainability, community impact, diversity, inclusion, and belonging, and EECNs, which are employee networks. So, together, because I believe that you have to build this culture coming it from yourselves, from your inner soul, because when you do that, you live and breathe it. So one of the ways we do that is to create that awareness through these teams that we have all across the globe, by running events, by sharing stories, by having allyships, and by giving back to the community as well. Because when all of us learn to be more appreciative of the differences, we understand, we are more self-aware, and we embrace it more. And when we come from a place where we are grateful and appreciative, we are also stronger human beings. So that's how I feel we should do it. It really has to be a strong culture that basically seals all this up together.
Yeah, absolutely agree with you, Ime. Thank you so much. And panelists, everything that you all have discussed just now are very important factors. And the truth is, every workplace is different, and employees have diverse needs. They can be a parent, a caregiver, an individual with a disability, and so on. And women especially have situational needs, meaning their needs change with time and place. A good example is pregnancy. So when an employee is pregnant, it is especially important that they feel safe and healthy in the office. How can offices become more maternity friendly, and what policies are a must for employers to extend to pregnant women? You may?
Yeah, so I think when someone is pregnant, and that's such a special time in a woman's life, right? So I remember when I was pregnant a long time ago in 1998, and he's clearly 23 years old now. Workplace wasn't so friendly, and it became very you almost stuck out like a sore thumb, and I remember I would try really hard to be as normal as possible, which was an impossible state, right? With your stomach getting bigger and bigger by the months, So, that's just really truly unnatural, and it just adds to the stress of becoming a mother, So I think it's very important that we embrace that, because that's the whole essence of life, right? I mean, our mothers gave birth, and that's our children. Our daughters will do the same, and that's how, we continue to exist. But yet in the workplace, fundamentally, that is a stressful point for a lot of mothers. So for me personally, I've always told women which are expecting, I said, please look after yourselves first and foremost. If you're not feeling well or you're not feeling comfortable, don't be afraid to say, I'm not feeling well, especially in the first 3 months. It's horribly uncomfortable. I said, just step out and look after yourself first and foremost. In Aquanix, what we've done is in all our new offices now, we have a mother's room, where they can check in and take a rest, lie down. You can lock the door. It's just a private place where they can relax when they're tired or they are nursing, and we also make sure that we constantly review parental leave. So not just the mothers, but the fathers, because parenting is a joint effort. And I think women feel that burden a lot, but when parenting is a joint effort, it becomes a joy and a partnership, and the tension at home is lighter, and happier, and there's more harmony and people, and when you're happy, everything else falls into place. So I think love is a powerful energy, clearly, so that clearly helps enhance that. And last but not least, I think our corporate offices now are designed in such a way that it is open, it is friendly, it has private spaces, and the person, the organization, the teams are put in the center of it all. So, I think that's what needs to happen. So, and that's the thing that I would encourage, people, teams, professionals to really look at all those aspects to make the workplace more friendly.
Thank you so much, Imari. And pregnant women are a specific consideration for organizations to manage, definitely. But in general, women deserve to feel safe when they are in the office. And in recent workplace studies, it has been said that globally, 1 in 5 women have felt unsafe at work for at least one occasion. So unfortunately, this always goes unnoticed in many workplaces because women fail to bring up cases of discrimination, segregation, and lack of inclusion. So keeping this in mind, what are some ways to increase women's general safety in the office? If panelists, you can suggest certain policies and specific about rethinking workplace design. Angie?
Yeah, so a couple of things that I think would be helpful is for people to feel safe, it's environment, what's in the surrounding. A couple of things that we've done here. Number one, it's pretty common, a visible or opaque meeting room. So something that you have a level of privacy during meeting, and yet, you have a level of a sense of security and safety. The other thing also, because in our business, we deal a lot with manufacturing as well. So one thing that we do is to provide a female only, I would say, restroom or a resting space for female only, so that they feel safe, especially if they are working night shifts or odd hours. So I think these are the few key policies that we do. Yeah, and then riding on what Imari was saying, the nursing room, a restroom for moms. Yeah, those are the few initiatives.
Thank you, Angie. Iman?
Yes, thank you. And it's a very important and critical question. Just to go back into women and also pregnant women, there is something that is extremely important, is the representation. Representation matters. When you have leaders who have been pregnant and have gone through that challenge in early their careers, like Imari, probably Angie, Sabrina, myself, we've been in environment where we hid our pregnancy for a long time. Then when you become a leader and you have a seat in the table to change policies or make a change, you do make a change. Hence the importance of being, of having this representation. I have many women in my team. I want, and I was talking to my team about affirmative actions, because I lead a cloud solution architect and technical team, and we don't have a lot of women in the technical in tech in the industry when it comes to deep tech. So I was telling my team that we have to bring seats on the table and we have to bring women. Now, when it comes to safety, first of all, the things that we are really passionate about here in Microsoft is what we call extreme flexibility. So women or anyone can work anywhere, anyhow they want, and they feel safe. It's not only about physical and virtual offices, it's to feel safe and have this psychological safety in the workplace. Again, not only that, having candid and open conversations is very important. We need the women to feel safe to come and speak up. How long did it take us for a Me Too? And I'm sure many in the audience today, they probably had few Me Too's in their life or in their working environment. Having women to speak up and ensuring that when they speak up, when they talk about these challenges, they will not have repercussions, they will not be fired, they will not be victimized or having blame the victim mindset is very important. Not only the physical safety of the environment, but the emotional and psychological safety. We can have, transparent offices, we can have resting rooms, but issues can happen in the MRT. Issues can happen when you are traveling abroad, where you're with your boss and he comes and knocks the door at night in your hotel room. Who do you go to? So it's very important when we see all this. And again, going back to representation, we've been there, we have Me Too, and that's why we're able to tell our younger female talent and women, it's okay, speak up. Nobody will come and tell and blame the victim if you have those situations. So having this open, candid, open door policy is very, very important so that women can talk about those issues.
Yes, thank you, Iman. Duncan?
No, I think I just want to build on Iman's comment because it's actually a really, really important topic. And it's, as a leader, you have to create this concept of a trusted space that allows people to come and have a discussion with you. And when they come, you've really got to listen differently, not just to the words, but to the overall environment. And I'll give you an example. I had a senior Chinese leader that I just was listening to one of the women in my team one day, and it was clearly there was something wrong. So I took her into a room and then she broke down. And what came out of that was this senior leader would touch her on the arm. Now, it wasn't something I'd ever heard about. And so I went and then checked with a number of other women across the leadership team. And it turns out 4 or 5 women had all had the same experience. First off, I was horrified because I didn't know. But you've got to create this trusted environment, like Iman says, because it's really critical to get that feedback. Now, this was a leader who was actually in his early 60s. And I ended up having a very direct conversation around women feeling uncomfortable. Now, it turns out he touched me on the arm as well. And so we had this direct discussion. Senior leader in his 60s, he was horrified. No one had ever told him. And I watched a behaviour change over the next 2 to 3 years where he would ask permission. And that was a total change. And then there was a whole lot more feedback around people just saying thank you for creating a difference because they notice a change in his behaviour. So as a leader, we own creating that space. This is why Iman's point is so important. We've got to create that trusted space, whether that's taking someone aside, and you've got to listen to everything going on in the environment. Sometimes it's just a really small comment. And the Me Too environment has really helped generate much more acceptability to have that discussion. And you can make a difference.
Thank you, Duncan, for this real life example. And yeah, and Imari?
Yeah, I think all my colleagues have touched on that, and I totally agree. In order that women can share, that trusted space is important. Most, especially if, junior employees are feeling uncomfortable and, they are afraid to speak out because there's always that insubordination or that concern that the job be lost, right? So, I think listening, understanding, seeing the body language, being really observant about what's going on, those are very, very important aspects of being self-aware of the environment, to Duncan's point. But over and above that, I think, for example, in Aquinics, what we've also done is we've also set up an ethics and compliance helpline, which is third-party manned, so that people feel that it is totally safe for them to go to this and they will not be seen to be the person, so that there's also that opportunity to create that. We've also set up the POSH committee. Clearly, the POSH committee is about the Sexual Harassment 2013 Act. So some of these things, the formal approach, and clearly as leaders, we must all remember. Sometimes it's never the obvious. It's the little nuances. It's the little mentions, right? For example, when remarks are made in a public forum, which are insensitive, which can be coined as a joke, but it is not quite a joke because it grates at the person. Leaders should always step in to basically sit the person down to say that that's not appropriate, and you really need to be a little bit more sensitive about who your audience is and what you say.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think I
absolutely.
want to touch on one thing, right? So we hear a lot about what leader would do from a leader's perspective. I also want to say that from a ground perspective, sometimes is that little bit of encouragement. If your peer, if your colleagues are noticing, are seeing, you realize the fear, or there's some conversation that happens, I think is to have that person to give them a little bit of courage, a little bit of allyship, a bit of encouragement to speak out or to stand out for them. So I think that will help to create a safe environment, knowing that your colleagues are with you. Yeah, there's just something to add here.
Yeah, thank you so much, Angie. So important. So another very important group of people to keep in mind when rethinking workplace design and inclusivity at work are the hearing and visually impaired. According to the World Health Organization, adults with visual or hearing impairment globally tend to have lower rates of workforce participation. This is an unfortunate reality for employees who have difficulty working independently in offices that are simply not designed with their needs in place. So panelists, what other solution can be offered to them to help them work more efficiently and independently?
I think this is where there's actually a lot we can do. And first off, understanding how well your organization is set up to be inclusive for someone who has a hearing impairment or a sight impairment. The thing that surprised me a few years ago was we looked at sight impairment and we looked at ourselves and said, so how inclusive are we? Within Asia Pacific, there are 50 million people with sight impairment, 50 million. So it's an incredibly large community. And then I'll be honest, as we went through our own and said, so can we enable someone to be productive in the workforce? We found great big holes in our own technology and our own training. So we're actually back at addressing that around how do we be more inclusive? Because in today's world, with virtual screens, as we've learned through COVID, the opportunity's there to both leverage technology and be more inclusive, allow people to participate more. Could you run a call center with someone who has a sight impairment? Well, actually, yes. It's about listening and it's about engaging. So I actually genuinely think there's a whole lot of opportunities. But, first off, we actually employed some people who had sight impairment and have found holes and honestly what we need to do better. Great opportunity.
Yes, representation. Thank you, Duncan. Iman?
And I totally agree with Duncan's assessment as well. I think in the beginning, the fact that the hiring managers or the people who decide on who to hire and not to hire, when they are not trained on accessibility, when are not trained on persons with disability hiring, they don't know what they don't know, and therefore they may not opt for hiring persons with disabilities. So the first thing that we did, and it was a mandatory training for everyone, is to attend and for every manager, and not only manager, every individual contributor, is to attend the learning and training of accessibility and persons with disability. The other point, which is Andrea Della Metella, our president in APAC, is very passionate about accessibility. We had Microsoft enablers, which means that in every subsidiary and every team, we encourage to hire people with disabilities and encourage also the dialogue of people with disabilities. We found out that there were people who had unseen disabilities. Some could not hear well, but they never mentioned it. Out of fear that they would see less or they will miss promotions. So we had also, again, part of the representation. There were leaders with visually impaired or not able to hear well, to come and say, by the way, me too, I have this disability, I don't hear well, and that's why I am loud. You think I'm loud just because I'm loud, but no, I'm loud because I don't hear well. And that opened the dialogue of everybody else to say, wow, corporate vice president, and he is sharing his vulnerabilities and disabilities. We also had cards where you have your company card, but you also have a card that says, I don't speak well, or I don't hear well, or I don't understand English, or I have mental health. So you can choose your card and you can have it as a conversation when you meet with somebody else. And I had people who came to me and say, look, I don't see well. And I was joking that me too, I don't see well. My eyesight is very, very short. And we had this conversation that, if you have one disability, you can also have a lot of inabilities, and that doesn't undermine your intelligence. So go in with the dialogue, go in with the encouragement, and also go in with representation to hire such people, and also enable them when it comes to digital transformation or technology. We see a digital divide for people who have disabilities. So we have, again, a program that's very specific to teach and coach persons with disabilities to be more, cloud native or cloud aware or technically enabled, so that we close that gap of skills as well.
Yes, thank you, Iman. It sounds like, organization has to be intentional when it comes to inclusivity. And panelists and audience, based on a study, around 1 in 5 adults experience some form of mental or psychological turmoil every year. It is undeniable that companies need to have employee psychological wellness in their best interest. So in what ways can companies create a fair and safe environment for all employees to thrive? Duncan?
I think the first thing to realise is there's been both positives and negatives that have occurred through the last 2 years, but just a really simple example. Now that we run a virtual background, you actually don't know what's happening behind with people in our organisation. You don't see them in the same way. And so the piece around asking them, are they okay? And then listening, for the whole environment, as Imari described, so you can pick up the subtle clues, then establishes, is someone actually okay? And we need to work on the hybrid environment to, obviously get some people back to the office so you can physically see them. But it's interesting, we've seen actually lots of strain going on that's all hidden behind the screen. So part of that then is, how do you behave? How do you engage people? And in some cases, it's as simple as both asking them, or how you manage your communication out to that broader environment, to find mechanisms to get them to come back via a hotline, to call someone when they need help, or even simple things like using the chat session in a meeting and just pulling people and including them makes such a difference to be able to, I guess, pick up whether someone's well or not well. And as I said, this whole concept of a virtual background actually hides a lot of things. So be really conscious of it.
Thank you, Duncan. And studies show that designing an inclusive workplace with solutions for diverse employees increase employee morale and is linked to 56% increase in job performance and is twice as likely to retain the best talent. So Angie, when it comes to attracting and retaining female talent, what do you believe are the top 3 policies that organizations should prioritize to ensure women can thrive and excel at work for a long time period?
So I think I'm gonna start sharing from the perspective of I think it starts from day one, the first encounter, the first touch point, which is bringing the right talent into the organization. So we do have a very clear policy or ask within our team and also our business leaders, very specific ask. They must have female leaders or female team members or panel interviewers in the panel to do an assessment, so that it's not an all male kind of environment. So that's one key ask from the leaders. And from us, who is doing all the work, the searches and all this, it's similar. we're going to have a diverse panel, a diverse shortlist. So depending on country, we look at female diversity, of course. Some other country, we even looking at what is the diversity in there for people with disability. You'll be surprised that there are regions that's doing very, very well in this space. So I think that's point number one, to be conscious, to measure with matrix. The second thing is, I think one thing that we've done well is also to include this topic in our training. We designed that consciously into our training program. Educate and make awareness of what is unconscious bias. You don't name it, you don't see it, you don't know it. It's around you. So when you start repeat that conversation, and every single hiring conversation, talent management conversation, we keep reminding them about this. Then there will be one day it's them who come to us and say, hey, what's happening? So then we want to have that reverse conversation. So that's second. The third one, I think also resonate with a lot of people here, is pay equity. So I think that's a big topic here, and there's a lot of technicality into it. And I think it's driving by corporate culture, philosophy as well. So what does pay equity means in the organization? How do you design that to be equal? How do you make sure that equity is achieved? How do you measure it? And who is guiding it? So I think these are the whole big mechanism on how the corporate driving this. So this is my 3 key policies or 3 things that we've done, key things that we have done here. Yeah.
Thank you, Angie. And Duncan, I know you have a very positive story to share.
Yeah, I totally agree, Angie, with all 3 points. But let me give you an example where sometimes you don't realise. So we had one of the countries where we run graduate recruitment, and it was a physical event. And we would get about 20% of the audience joining us coming out of the universities would be women. 2 years ago, we went to a virtual event. We had 45% of the audience were women turning up, because that feeling, and we went back and asked around, so why did you turn up now to a virtual event when before you didn't turn up for a physical event? And they said that feeling about being in a room and being a minority is a terrible feeling. And so they would rather not come to the event at all. And so, and we've come across this now on the multiple occasions. So Angie's point around addressing all 3 layers is really, really important, because now it's at the top of the hiring funnel, you've got 45% diverse talent coming through. It makes such a difference to get 45% at the bottom of the funnel. But you need to address all 3, and it really works. You can be inclusive. And one of the simple ways I can tell in a meeting around diversity is if you go view and you look at gallery and look at all the faces. As soon as you see all the faces on the screen, you know whether you've got a diverse team, even on the call.
Agree. Thank you, Duncan. And Imari, could you suggest a few steps that company executives can take to start making inclusive design a priority at their organization?
I touched on it a little while earlier. I really believe that at the core of it, it has to be the culture and the value of the company, because intrinsically that comes from inside. Now, and then clearly, it has to be driven top down, and it has to be embraced bottom up. So, I've really seen this work really well in Equinix. Our CEO is really passionate about ensuring that we create a workplace where I'm safe, I belong, and matter. We have DIB Council, which is chaired by senior executives from around the globe, from different functions, and we discuss issues in terms of diversity. We run the EECNs, which are the employee networks. The employee networks are where employees come together based on common themes. For example, Black Connect, Vet Connect, Connectabilities, which are the teams of people that have disabilities. There is Asian Connect, and these are connect groups that come together, formed by employees themselves. And then we have the We Are Equinix, which are the teams at the grassroots level which basically come together at the country level on the 6 pillars that I shared earlier, where they run initiatives. They have conversations. We also have days of understanding every year, where it is a 7x24, and it's hosted by facilitators, volunteered. And like, for example, this year is just to be talking about the moment. That means, what is it that you want to share? And it's okay to just be yourself. Share about what are the things that are disturbing you, and feel all right that you are bringing this into the workplace. Because as I've said, and I really, really believe in that, when you have self-awareness, when you have understanding, you have self-awareness. And when you have self-awareness, you intrinsically build that into your DNA. So that says how we are building that DNA of being inclusive in our organizations. And I think, I am really heartened that in 2022, it's all right to be vulnerable at the workplace. I mean, when I started back in 1985, it was totally not all right to be vulnerable, and the best thing about Acronix is we actually have our executives that get so passionate and emotional, they start crying, and these are men. And I remember in those days, I'm one where I get very passionate and I start crying, and it was not okay because, that showed that you were weak, you're not together. I think at the core of it, we need to bring the human into the workplace and accept that human being as the person is. And that to me is being true about inclusivity.
I love it. Thank you so much, Imai. And Angie, I know you have something to add as well. Feel free.
Yeah, just to add on, right, from a corporate perspective, what we're saying, what our leaders doing, I think one key thing is make the number counts. We say we will do, track it, publish it, make it count. Somebody can track you. So if you're interested, you can go to our website. We have our diversity data published to the public. And as an organization, I think it's not easy. One thing is, to Imai's point, leaders have to subject yourself to vulnerability. I remember attending a town hall. We have people asking very open question to the leadership. What happened to your diversity? Looking at that chart, there is a problem there. In a town hall, nobody was taken aback. Question was addressed. So I think it's that level of trust that you need to build in that environment, people that is willing to speak out, people is willing to see and to address. It's just.
Thank you, Angie. I love it. And panelists and audience, we're moving into our final part of our fireside chat. So panelists, what do you like the most about what your organization is doing to keep the workplace inclusive? Iman?
Yes, so I really love the conversation so far, and I love about the numbers and making the numbers count. Angie, the balance I'm taking as well, especially with my hiring managers, is not to have it as a diversity checkbox, not have it as they hired her because of diversity, and I started by myself all the time, and I say I am not a diversity hire. I'm hired because I deserve it. I worked hard for it, and I deserve this seat on the table. So we need to educate our hiring managers that yes, diversity matters, and in the same time, the people that you're bringing to the table, they are not only diversity hires, they deserve a seat on the table. Having what I love in Microsoft is, going back to Imai's point, is the culture. It's in our mission. We need to be diverse. We have to be diverse. If we can't empower everyone in the planet if we are not diverse. And as one last word that I really, really love, and I always share it with my team as well, is when you do not intentionally include, you unintentionally exclude. So we want to be inclusive, not only on hiring or on race and gender and everything else. It's also when it comes to meetings. when it comes to information sharing, when it comes to rewards and recognition. Intentionally include so that you don't unintentionally exclude and say, oops, I didn't know. So it's very important to be intentional. And I love that in my organization, we always try and thrive to be intentional in our inclusion.
Yeah, I mean, inclusion is actually every part of the organization. I agree with you, May. It starts with you as a person and what you do and how you operate. And then to Aman's point, it actually has to go down through every manager and every leader of the organization. I think part of my experience, investing in a community effort actually helped change the perspective around what's possible. So having the courage to step into an environment and say, can we make a difference? And that, you know, bigger game of thinking around what can we do differently to lift the inclusion of the workplace. And in our case, it said, can we help women return to work? And we started with an original goal that said, could we help 15,000 women? Never expecting to get there, and then have achieved that. So we've set a goal over the next 3 years is, can we help 100,000 women in Asia Pacific and give them the confidence to come back into the workplace? Now, every organization's got a shortage of digital skills. So, you know, jealously, we're trying to encourage more of them to come back into the IT workplace. But that piece around both self all the way through to community, I actually think that's the balance that enables you to have really good perspective around what you can do to make a difference, and then just have courage to start and try. Because at the end of the day, you know, we started this journey and have followed it through, and that's been a learning experience for us as much as it's made a difference for the women that we've helped.
Yeah, you know, I am truly inspired by my colleagues today here with their sharing, and you know, that really motivates me to do more of even what I've started. You know, unfortunately, I've only had the ability to really focus on this aspects of it because, you know, in the last 20 years of my career, I've been focused on turnaround businesses, which are pretty brutal about just making results work. But, you know, I think to be able to fundamentally focus on the human aspects and making us better human beings in every aspect of the word, in the workplace and personally is a great sustainable element, because, you know, I think there are many complexities for the younger generation to face, with sustainability being one, the current geopolitical unrest, you know, and I think we need to hold true to ourselves and make sure that whatever we do or say, it lends positive weight in the world, and being inclusive is being one of them. You know, I think one of the special things I really love about being in academics is we truly mean it when we say that I'm safe, I belong, I matter. Now, however, there's still a long way for us to go in terms of making sure that everybody really believes that. You know, and our CEO has been a real champion in that. You know, I think it's basically ensuring that we move people from a space of being uncomfortable to comfortable, to being scared, from being scared to being bold, to speak out, the courage that Duncan spoke about, you know, and one of the values that we have in academics is really open your heart, open our hearts, open our minds, because, you know, by being true to ourselves, we become better versions of ourselves. And that to me is what being inclusive is about. So thank you.
Thank you, Imari. Angie?
I think a few key words that resonates very well is being here in DuPont and in the inclusive workspace. Number one is open-mindedness. I think that's key. One thing that the environment has allowed us to do that. Number two is probably a little personal, and I also, you know, projecting this to the team, to the colleagues as well, is have empathy and be human. I think oftentimes when we're in corporate environment, we just run and run and run and run. We forget that we're human. It's okay to be vulnerable. it's okay that I'm not feeling well today. It's okay that I don't feel like talking to you right now, right? And to what Imari was sharing earlier as well, one thing that, this is a conversation sometimes I drive with my hiring managers. It's like, diversity, where's my diversity? I was like, let's get real here. As much as I'm also championing diversity, I cannot exclude my male counterpart because I need to achieve diversity. I said, then I'm not being fair, I'm being unfair. So I think open-mindedness holds the key to all this, that allows us to speak candidly and have a very open and transparent conversation. And it's all built upon respect for people, all walks of life, all kinds of people.
Thank you, Angie. And I'm conscious about the time and we're a little bit overrun, but I really want all the audience to walk away with this one thing before today's event and before our quick Q&A. So panelists, please share with all of us the #1 effective way to be more inclusive in the workplace this 2022. Duncan?
I think to Angie's point, this piece around empathy and being human is absolutely critical. It doesn't necessarily make it easy. It's much easier to be very focused on numbers and I'm just going to focus on those and ignore it. But actually, when you do that, you then lose out on all the value that comes with emotion, with passion, with engagement, and with innovation. So I think the first thing is just within yourself, focus on how you be more empathetic, how you listen differently to the whole environment that's going on, and engage. And you'll be amazed on how much value there is that you can tap into in your team and how much more pleasurable the workplace is.
Thank you, Duncan. Imari?
Yeah, I will add to that by saying that as women, I think we are the harshest to ourselves. We tend to be very demanding, and we tend to punish ourselves for things. So, for me, it's okay to be not perfect, and it's okay to show a vulnerable side, because by doing that step by step, and I'm seeing that in Equinix, and clearly the CEO has started that from the top, people really open up, and when you open up, you build trust. And when you build trust, that is really inclusivity.
Thank you. Iman?
I love this conversation. From my end, I would say being intentional or helping others. Simon Sinek says it all the time in his podcast. There are many books of self-help. There are not enough books on how to help others. So once we are empathy and we are vulnerable and we intentionally thrive to helping others, we will have a much better, more inclusive workplace.
Thank you, Iman. Angie?
I only have one keyword when I sum this up, is storytelling. Regardless, relaying a good story like Duncan did, a good case study like Iman did, passion like Imari did. It's all about telling a good story that resonates. And that has to keep going. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Angie. And I know we're a little bit overrun, but I really want to go through 2 questions, sending in from our audience. We receive loads of amazing questions. I really want to go through this too. So panelists, how can we empower and uplift fellow women in the workplace? And how can we promote more active allyship?
I'll go first, Sabrina. Yeah, I think today we have many platforms that we've given women to be encouraged to step up. But I think fundamentally, especially in Asia, women are not brought up to be assertive or strong, right? Because that's not how we are brought up in the home, and hence it's not a point of comfort. But I think I really encourage women to really be bold and be confident and voice when you see things that don't work, because your intuition is at the core of you, and that actually speaks out to you the strongest. So don't be afraid to voice.
I think just to build on that, find people you can talk to. Find someone who, whether it's a formal mentor or an advisor or someone you can talk to. Imay's right, that the inner voice that goes on for most women is your strongest ability to change and improve, but you're your harshest critic. And so knowing that's there, finding other people you can talk to and talk to honestly in your network is really, really critical. So look for mentors or informal mentors or coaches, people that you trust. It makes such a difference.
And that's a great call out, Duncan, as well, is from as a leader, the advice is to find mentors for the young generation, but as leaders, I seek to coach and mentor younger female, because I do see that they're not brought up to have confidence. They're really shy when it comes to talking in meetings, especially in virtual meetings, and they may not raise their hand for that promotion or that job. So I spend really a fair bit of my time intentionally coaching and mentoring women in Microsoft and outside of Microsoft, because those are the layer and foundation of the next generation of female leaders. So our duty as leaders as well is really to seek them out, encourage them, and give them that voice and that confidence to lead by themselves also.
And I think I'll speak from the heart as somebody who is on this journey. I think a few key things that as I'm talking, I'm reminding myself as well, is really be brave. You have to be brave, you have to speak up for yourself. Like Imai says, you know, we're not brought up in that environment, in that culture that perpetually out there, like be so loud about ourselves. It's not in our DNA. So it is a very conscious effort. It's difficult, it's tough. So you just have to be proactive, keeps talking to people, like what Duncan said as well. And you talk to 10 people, you're going to end up with 1 or 2 that's going to champion for you. You're going to find Iman in that 10, right? You just have to keep talking to people, keep telling people what you want, keep championing for yourself while you're looking for an ally to go with you. So that's speaking from experience as well. Yeah, self-reminder.
Thank you, Angie. And one last question before we wrap up for today. So panelists, what are some mindsets you have daily that allowed you to thrive in the things that you do?
I would go first. My mindset is optimism. I am very optimistic, but it doesn't mean that I'm not real. I do see the glass half full and half empty. I do see the glass as is, but I am an eternal optimist that the future will be bright, that the humanity is fantastic, and then we are all great. So optimism is one of the things that keeps me going. The other thing on a daily basis is to be present at the present. I can achieve more every day when I am present every day. While I have long-term goals and aspirations, the daily presence, the daily intentionality is what brings me slowly and slowly to where I want to be. So optimism and being present at the present is what keeps me going.
Man, I actually totally agree. That engagement in the moment is absolutely critical, because if you're in the moment, you listen and you hear and you see what's going on, which makes, even if the engagement is only 6 minutes, you can actually get so much more out of it. And so I'm like you. I actually genuinely think we're on now. Gender diversity, thanks to people like Sabrina, is actually on the agenda. And I watched organisations last year move their gender diversity 6% in a year. So I'm really, really positive about the next few years actually is going to have a big shift across the workplace.
So I'll say here is be authentic. I think that's important, be authentic. Say yes to what you want. And one thing that we often don't talk about is say no to what you don't want. Don't take it because it's in front of you. So dare to say yes, at the same time, dare to say no. So be authentic.
Yeah, I really agree with everyone. And I think what I would add to that is, I think I really just simplify it into two things for myself every day. There's so much noise in our head and things that we deal with. And I just put it under two buckets, positive or negative. If it's negative, don't focus on it. If it's positive, focus on it and try and basically find the balance and stay centered. And I think the other thing is I am truly warmed that there's so many men that are joining this coalition building for being to have the gender diversity that we have, that we are basically having this platform for. And I'd like to really personally thank Duncan for all the things that he has done to help this coalition building, and I'm very positive that together we will make the world a better one for the future generations to come.
Thank you so much for all the panelists, your thought leadership for today. So Bianca, I'll pass the mic back to you for our closing.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Sabrina. And thank you as well to all our panelists. I must say, I'm truly inspired by the discussion, and I believe that storytelling is so important, not just because it tells your story, but because it also makes you realize that we're in a similar journey, although we're so different. So yes, very valuable knowledge today, and gems to carry forward. And so as a matter of closing, I just want to say to everybody in our audience, don't forget the diversity employers on Half the Sky are hiring and are committed to empowering women to thrive within their organizations, of course, like our 4 panelist organizations today. And they provide flexible working arrangements, equal pay initiatives, return to work policy, and many more. And of course, we have their jobs listed on our platform, halftheskyasia.com. As well as that, we have a lot of resources to share with you. If you sign up on our platform, halftheskyasia.com, it's completely free, and you'll be receiving exclusive event invites like this one, thought leadership content, many more resources, and of course, job alerts, as mentioned. Don't forget as well to follow us on our social media. The QR codes are up on the screen. And we have more events coming up next month and all the months to come. So if you stay tuned to our events page, we'll have more details posted up there very soon. So once again, thank you to everyone, and a special thank you to our amazing panelists, Yimei, Iman, Duncan, and Angie, and of course, our very own Sabrina Ho, who has been our host today. Stay safe, everyone, and I hope to see you in our next event. Take care. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.